This is Woodwords the podcast, a production of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild, with host Kevin Thomas. Here's your host, Kevin Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Woodwords the podcast, production of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. I am Kevin Thomas, your host. We're joined today, as usual, by Mike Jones. Grace Ambrose is under the weather. I know she's got her fans out there, but I'm sorry she's not feeling well. So we are joined by another younger person. It's not all graybeards today. This is our, coming out from behind the camera is our producer, Chris McCauley. Chris, say hi.
How's it going, guys?
Good. Today we're going to do a little promoting of sorts. We're going to talk about the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild and what it's done to improve our woodworking and our basic lives in general. Mike, you want to get us started?
Where does one start? This guild's been around for a long time. We've not been in a physical shop environment for as long as we've been in existence. The physical shop existence that we enjoy today was an upgrade from where we were at previously in Merriam. And before that, we were in the basement of a church, and there was only about 75 members in the guild. So what this guild has done for me is given me an opportunity to get into a air-conditioned or heated shop and do things that I otherwise probably wouldn't be doing in my own garage. I mean, back in the day, I had 900 square foot detached garage in my backyard that I did all my work in there. But when that went away, I ended up, that was about the time that we were moving into Merriam. Over the years, as we've expanded the guild's capability and the machinery that we have, that's helped me. I mean, I've been working kind of an advanced level in woodworking for quite a few years. The greater joy for me being here at the guild is being able to help share what I have learned and passing that on, which of course is our mission in the guild, is to advance the craft of woodworking and teach and be an educational opportunity for those people who don't have a lot of skill in woodworking but are looking to broaden their horizons. So,
How about you, Chris?
So a little history on me, because got the history on you guys from previous podcasts. I got my start in woodworking in like high school theater, and then moving into home shop and just doing silly stuff around. My dad and I were kind of built up some tools in the shop, and we were working on my nephew's. His Cub Scouts were they were in advance, so they were making camp boxes and got some more advanced tools to get to that process. And I decided that year, I had been watching a bunch of YouTube videos, and it's probably 5-6 years ago, it was real popular. Everyone was doing ingrain cut boards, and we just didn't have the equipment at home to do what we needed to do. And I said, okay, there's got to be some place I can find. So I hopped on Google and searched, and the guild popped up. And so okay, let's see what this thing's about. And came in, and immediately, once I came in, took a tour, immediately fell in love, and said, I gotta get in here and do some real woodworking. And like I said, that was probably, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It was, I think my nephew was 11 at the time. He's now almost 17. Will be 17 in February. So. And so it's been a minute, and
you brought the whole family with you.
Yep. So I came in, and that year I talked to my dad about it, and he ended up giving me as my Christmas present the membership to the guild, and I gave him as his Christmas present a membership to the guild. Since then, my nephew, who's 16, is a student member. My daughter's going to be a member as soon as she turns 13 here in December. Uh, she's heading off camera. She's making notes that that's going to be her birthday present is her membership to the guild. And then my grandfather is. So we actually have 4 generations in the guild. And I think I was a member of the guild for probably just maybe 6 months at most. And I got involved with, was going to help Roger with the audio and the video. And it very quickly became, now I'm running the audio and video, and now we're on YouTube and live streaming and podcast. And I'm not regretting it at all. But just, I always encourage people to volunteer. Just be wary when you volunteer, you might get put in charge of it. Just don't do too good of a job. You'll get put in charge of it. But I absolutely love it. I'm a foreman, and, getting to help, new woodworkers and even experienced woodworkers coming up with ideas or solutions that maybe they couldn't quite think of on a project. I love when someone comes in like, okay, I have this, I want to build this, but I'm not sure quite how to get there. One thing I love about the guild is you can ask 10 different people and you'll get 12 different answers. And they're all right. It's just a matter of how you get there. And everyone has a different point of view of how they've done it or how they would do it. And so that I really enjoy about the guild is that willingness to share. How about what's your guild story?
Come on.
I joined the guild in the waning years of 2005. And at that time, we were meeting in the basement of Jacob's Well Church over in Westport. And I think the biggest thing it did for me has done for me is the people I've met. Become good friends, like both of you here I've considered good friends, but I've met some really, really talented people. I've learned from those people. I have, I would say, a mentor in the man Dave Kratz, who's kind of everybody's mentor. And I've had the opportunity to meet some that have taught here. I've had the opportunity to meet Nancy Hiller, God rest her soul, Mike Pekovich, Christopher Swartz, Megan Fitzpatrick, some of the more national names, but just some of the great people that are here, like Dave, Mike, Mac
Dressler, Cal Hobbs,
Benjamin Hobbs.
Yep.
It's the talent that we've got access to here is just amazing. And it has helped make me a better woodworker. And then in doing so, I've been able to learn to share the craft more, teaching and getting involved in directing as a director of training, which was something I never expected to do when I joined those years ago. And it's really been one of my favorite things to do. I thoroughly enjoy the Thursday nights with the basic and the intermediate woodworking. That's been one of my favorite things to do. About 3 or 4 years now. It's just been a great thing to do.
Well, like in most cases, when you're teaching or when you're involved in some sort of teaching capacity, there's a lot you're learning yourself.
Absolutely.
I have found it's been beneficial for me to teach, like my knife class.
Mm-hmm.
I walk people through how to do it, and by watching them struggle with certain aspects of it that I had employed prior to the class, I developed a different way of doing it and suggesting to them how to speed the process excuse me, how to get to the end result quicker without destroying the project, hurting yourself.
Both are important.
Yeah. I've also found that the guild has benefited me because when I'm exposed to, well, for example, the monthly meeting when we have show and tell, and you have someone walk in here with a piece like Tom Smaller, and you find out that Tom's only been woodworking a few short years, and he's producing pieces that are nearly museum quality. Something that most of the guys in the Society of American Period Furniture Makers would drool about. Or you watch Cal knock out a bone clawfoot leg on a chair, or you watch Mac Dressler carve a piece, or Dave Krass. I mean, I can go down the list of all these guys, and when I see their work and I observe how they process and how they do things, that inspires me, pushes me to try things that I've not done before.
For me, the show and you talk about show and tell. Show and tell is always inspiring and intimidating in a good way, because we all know that if Les brings in an item, I'm not going up to show and tell after he's done. It's it's inspiring because you're like, okay, if he can go to take a raw piece of wood from the one of our sponsored lumber yards the same as I can and build this, it's doable. There's no magic powers. There's no magic wand that you could you can wave and get it done. It's just a matter of the skill and the practice. And one thing I love about the guild is every single one of those guys that we listed, if you ask them how they did it or tips or tricks, they are more than willing to share.
Yep.
And everyone at the guild has their specialties. If I'm going to be making a knife, I'm going to Mike. If I'm making a workbench, I'm going to Kevin. If I need to do finishing, I'm going to Craig. And everyone has their special abilities of what they've found that they like and they enjoy and they're good at, and every single one's willing to share. There's no gatekeeping as far as this is my information, I'm not willing to share it with you. And it's in the guild's training program. Kudos to the guild's training program to put on these trainings of what's interested and get people to enjoy it. And I enjoy seeing, even just as a foreman, people coming in who, when they first come in, they just went to the safety orientation, they have no clue what they're doing on any tools, and you come back and you watch them 6 months later and they're making pieces like Tom's, and it's just like, you didn't even know how to turn on the table saw 6 months ago, and now you're creating this.
I think the one thing the guild has inspired me is my writing.
Yeah.
I've had the one article published so far, and then of course I write my blog, and I write several. I write at least one article every month for the newsletter. But I just recently submitted another article, Popular Woodworking, and I've been told that it's going to be published. I don't know when, but
Congratulations.
it covers the training aspect of guild here, taking time to do, and so that's inspired me. I'm going to put together another article. Logan seemed to be happy with what I sent him. I can get another one out of him.
Awesome. Back in the day when I was training director, the big push was to bring in nationally known instructors. And there seems to be a lot more of those popping up on the horizon outside of the usual, the Christopher Schwartz and the Megan Fitzpatricks and the Mike Pekovich and Kelly Mailer and all those guys. YouTube has become a tremendous influencer in the woodworking world, and so there's a lot of guys coming out of that, out of the YouTube world, that are starting to make appearances. Jonathan Katz Moses, Lincoln Street Woodworks, I don't know how often Stumpy Nubs, James
Hamilton.
I don't know how often he gets out and presents to guilds like ours or clubs. But those guys, that has opened up the world of woodworking to a greater degree just by virtue of the fact now you can go online, go onto YouTube and find a YouTube video relative to what it is that you're wanting to do. I can't tell you how many videos there are out there on instructing on how to dovetail and not use a jig.
Oh,
You know,
half of
and,
YouTube.
and I've discovered that it takes me longer to set up a dovetail jig and cut dovetails than it does just to cut them by hand. And somebody here at this guild showed me how to do that and how to fit them, how to make them work, how to trim them down and get them to fit tight. And there's another greater benefit of the guild. You get introduced to something. I think, for the most part, most woodworkers, whether they're new to woodworking or experienced, most of us are visual learners.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being the case, that kind of helps people to advance their skill. You see little tips and techniques and tricks that experienced guys use to do various and sundry things in woodworking. People are inclined to want to try it.
Is it they say, see a thing, do a thing, or something?
Yeah. Well, what is it I think they tell you in teaching? We retain less than 10% of what we learn from a book and 90% of what we learn through experience. So
going to your cut and dovetail, like you said, there's hundreds, if not millions, of videos on YouTube on how to do a dovetail, and you can watch, someone on YouTube cut that dovetail. But by coming down here to the guild and having Dave Kratz or Cal or especially one of our people who are really good at that, and they'll spend the time with you and be like, okay, let's go grab some scrap wood and let's cut a dovetail, and they can correct you as you go. They can see what you're doing, and you might miss a step or something minor on the video, or even how to hold the saw, or some technique that you're missing on the video because they don't verbalize it while they're showing you on the video, and you just may not see it. Especially if you're watching on your phone, your screen's only that big, you can't see that detail. But having that person standing over your shoulder, or even sometimes holding your hand physically while you're doing it to show you this is the technique you need, and the guild provides that. It's that one-on-one teacher. And when I'm a foreman, I love showing people, coming with a live edge board, and they're trying to use the joiner, and they're spending half an hour trying to take this piece from the lumber yard through the joiner because it's such a cup on it. I'm like, let's go get the track saw, run it through one time, and you got that straight edge. I've never used a track saw. Okay, let me teach you. And I'll show them how to use the track saw. And I always tell them, okay, I've shown you how to use it. You use it. Now, next time someone needs it, you got to show them. And it's that, see one, do one, teach one.
I'm pretty sure that many of the people who join the guild who don't have a lot of experience, my feeling is as a foreman, if you join this guild and you're wanting to learn stuff, I'm going to push you. I am going to kind of force you out of that comfort zone, that safe little box you're in. The example that I love to use, and I really, really admire her and respect her for what she's accomplished, is Marcel Bredemeyer. Marcel joined, 5-6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
She walked in here with virtually no woodworking experience other than the exposure she had from her dad in his shop in Springfield, Illinois. And she was making some sort of a box or something. And I said, you really ought to try putting dovetails on it. I've never done it. Well, that's all the more reason to try it. If you haven't done it, try it. And what I respect about Marcel is she wasn't afraid to take a challenge like that at all. And I recall her coming in here weekend after weekend, going into the bench room and cutting dovetail after dovetail after dovetail. She never got really frustrated, at least she didn't show it.
I think there was some
But
frustration,
I
but
think,
she holds it very well.
yeah,
I
she was
think
really good about it.
didn't she went on to do one of our first skill builders on cutting
Dovetails, exactly. And that was
Right.
kind of the point that I was alluding to is here's Marcel who'd never done them before, and she practiced and practiced and practiced. Along the way, of course, she had to learn how to sharpen chisels, and she got pretty good at that. And then the next thing you know, she's mastered the skill, and then is invited to teach a skill builder class. She was intimidated more by that request than she was by the challenge of learning it.
Yeah.
She wasn't sure she was qualified to teach it. I said, don't be ridiculous.
No.
And the fact that she is a woman in woodworking, which is a relatively small percentage compared to the world of woodworking, people who are in it.
It's not as small anymore.
Not as small, exactly.
growing all the
That's
time, and I
been an
love it.
exciting thing that we have gotten here at the Guild. We've got a lot of women joining the Guild, wanting to pick up skills and learn how to do things. I mean, they see stuff on Pinterest, they see stuff on Etsy, and then you realize, well, that actually looks kind of simple. So they come in here, and the next thing you know, they're knocking it out. And
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things I've enjoyed seeing the most. Whenever I joined the guild, we had one, maybe two female members, and now I look at the roster for each class coming through. First thing I do is check to see how many female members are part of the class, and it's growing every time we teach the class. There's one here, there's two here, maybe three. They usually turn out to be the best at the best projects in the class. So
well, we also have to kind of point out the fact that one of our foremen is Kara Paris, who Kara is somewhat of an anomaly because she is a female woodworker and she's been a teacher in woodwork. She taught in the independent school district.
yeah,
And she knows her way around the shop pretty darn well. And again, it was kind of an anomaly to have someone like Kara come in and show some of the more experienced woodworkers some of the things that she was capable of doing.
and if you're in the shop when she's foreman and you mess up, you will hear her teachers.
I've been very lucky and haven't heard that voice yet.
Again, I don't want it to sound sexist or
No.
whatever, but as you pointed out, there's a lot more women joining the guild, coming in here with various levels of skill and ability. Another one that has blown me away is Meredith Hart, who
Yeah.
joined the guild after I think she had just secured her master's degree in architecture. And her and her dad joined the guild, and she came in here and she made a few little relatively simple projects, but certainly not simple from the standpoint of what she designed, because she designed everything herself and then came in here and built it. And then she moved on to enroll in the Bennett Street School in Boston.
Yeah.
And did 2 years there at Bennett Street. Now she's got her own studio and is doing a lot of really beautiful pieces, some period pieces, some other stuff that's a little bit more modern influence, but she's done extremely well.
And you'll find her on Instagram. I believe it's Meredith Hart Furniture.
Right.
Just beautiful things that she did. Okay, we've talked about what the guild has done for us. What can we do for the guild?
You know, that's Chris mentioned it earlier. I have a similar experience. When I joined the guild, we were meeting in Jacobsville Church, and I was actually invited to come to the guild meeting by George Dixon. another longtime member who's since
Former
passed
president.
away. Former president. He's probably held every position in the guild.
Yeah.
In fact, he was the treasurer when I joined. And the night that I came to my first meeting, I sat at the check-in table and took money. And little did I know, George was grooming me to take over his job. That's
to
the
happen
one
around here sometimes.
That's the one job that I've never had in the guild, was treasurer. There's a good reason for that. But if there's anything that we or those who are listening can do, is step up and volunteer, get involved. This guild does not run itself.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I don't think people understand, is we are a totally volunteer organization. We just had a small,
Something fell over there.
yeah, but totally a volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid here. We are a 501c3.
Yep.
And nonprofit, so nobody gets paid anything to operate. The foremen are totally volunteer. All of our officers and directors are volunteer. And we always hope for new blood. You know, if you get the idea that you want to do something, you probably can. Just step up and volunteer to get you started as an assistant in one of the director's positions, and I can say that my assistant training director, he likes to refer to himself assistant to the training director, be the assistant, but Brent helps me bunches and just in scheduling.
Yeah,
classes.
Brent does the heavy lifting.
I'm the pretty face, and Brent does all the work. And that's
an
stretch.
interesting way to look at it.
Now, I think you were talking about, you said volunteering as an assistant or as a director, even just volunteering as a foreman.
Yes.
And that's one thing I was just recently looking at, was noticing, was if you look at our foreman schedule, from 6 years ago versus looking at our foremanship schedule now, the amount of open shop time that has increased in just a couple of years because people stepping up and wanting to be foremen. And we talked about, not being paid, and, we are all 503. My dad wrote the article a couple years ago in the newsletter because he had someone come in and didn't want to clean up their saw.
That was just in last month's
And
newsletter.
it's happened a couple of times, but didn't want to clean up the saw, and goes, well, that's what the foremen get paid for. No, foremen don't get paid. Well, you guys get a discount on your membership. And actually, no, most foremen actually pay more than our, what we're required to pay, because we believe in the guild, we believe in the program, and we want to support it and sponsor it. So we'll go ahead and pay that extra, to be a benefactor. Don't have to, but we want to see the guild succeed and stay around. That's why we volunteer. And so if you want to see the guild stay and continue, we need those people to step up and even just be a foreman, even volunteer to come in and do a guild project, building the turf boxes, or we got Santa's workshop coming up, so I'm gonna put plug in for that we need people to volunteer for that. And that's just that, the turf boxes and the guild projects and the guild events, those are 1 day project, 1 weekend project. If it's a big project, it might last a month, but when you're done. But it gets you some more exposure. It gets you working with other members in the guild, and it gets you that exposure and what you need for the interaction. Talking about Les has his own shop. He doesn't need the guild. He drives from Wichita for the meetings. He drives 3 hours to come to the meetings to see the show and tell, to have that camaraderie of brotherhood and sisterhood we have here at the Guild, and that family we've created at the Guild, that, you know, I want to go see my friends. So he's going to drive 3 hours from Wichita
And then
once a
drives
month,
back.
and then
the
drives
same
back the
night.
same night. And he's usually here an hour early, and then usually stays,
Till the end.
until the end, and usually even later, and then 3 hours. So, that's 9 hours of a day to come to our 1 hour meeting.
Yeah. You mentioned the Santa's workshop. I would put forward to everyone that if you want a gratifying and just enjoyable experience, volunteer for that. We did it for the first time last year. I spent a couple of days operating one of the table saws and the drill press one day, and it was just a thrilling thing. You get the kids coming through, and they're in awe of everything.
Well, the one thing with that, when we exited, I was, events director, and I put out a survey to everyone who volunteered, said, what did you enjoy, what did you not enjoy? And most of, what did you not enjoy was, nothing. Everything was great. What did you enjoy the most? And it was almost consistently, almost across the board, was seeing the kids and the camaraderie. I can't say that word. Camaraderie of, the friendship of getting to be in here and working with other guild members, and then seeing the kids and their excitement, and we've said it several times, passing it on. This is a craft that we do that if we do not pass it on, it will die. If I don't pass this on to my nephew Charlie or to Megan, they're not going to know it. If they don't pass it on, the next generation is not going to know it. And
I don't know so much. I don't know that I would agree that it's going to die.
No,
I don't think this craft will ever die because there are people that it's in their DNA.
Yes, but it's because it's been shared. And
not necessarily. I think, honestly, I believe people are born with various and sundry abilities. I believe we have God-given gifts that the difference is getting exposed and having an opportunity.
Maybe I used share wrong. Exposure.
Hit that button. Because my button was punched in 7th grade wood shop in junior high.
And maybe that's what I meant, rather than share, meant the exposure. Because, and we talked about in the last podcast, is woodworking in schools. You learned in 7th grade. There's a lot of schools that don't have that anymore.
I was really blessed because I had absolutely standout woodworking teachers from 7th grade all the way through my senior year in high school. And they encouraged me all along the way, to the point where I entered some of my projects in state competitions and won. That continues to bolster a love and a desire. I ended up going into home building and cabinet making. I've probably worked in every area of woodworking and construction that you can possibly think. The only thing I haven't done is mold making for foundry, which is a whole other element of the craft that is dying.
That's its own subset.
It is dying too, because they now have 3D printers to produce the masters, which is run off of a computer program, and they're actually more accurate than the old mold makers could make. So there's one where technology is slowly taking over a craft that's been around for a couple hundred years. Since the Industrial Revolution, they've been using wood for mold making. So
that we have a molding machine here to make the.
I'm talking about guys who made like fogged wheels.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought you were talking about
all
of
the arms that are attached to the concentrics on the wheels on a steam locomotive.
Oh yeah,
those were cast out of iron, and in order for them to do that, they had to make a master of what that would be, put that into a sandbox, pack that all in, and be able to split that box apart, take that wooden master out of there, put the box back together, and pour the molten steel into that.
Yep.
And one of our long-term members owns Ace Foundry. I don't know if I'm not sure Ace is still in business. I think they are. I think his daughter took it over, but that was kind of where he started.
Yeah.
How he got introduced to woodworking is because they were making masters for molds.
We have all areas of the business world that are members of
Oh,
the
yeah.
guild. Engineers of all sorts.
I guess I should mention that was Bill Beisel, who's our
Yes.
member, who owns Ace Foundry. Very, very talented, capable woodworker.
Okay. Well, best thing we can tell you is if you think you want to learn, you want to join a great bunch of guys, gals, everybody here, look into membership. If you're not already a member, volunteer. If you're a member, volunteer, get yourself involved. And other than that, any closing comments, gentlemen?
No, I've never been able to say enough about the guild to do it justice. I'm not sure anybody can say in a few short words what the true benefit is of this guild. I mean, we've touched on just about all of it. Sharing the craft, making friends. I think it's even suggested that we get better looking because we're wood.
Yeah. I'd like to think so.
I think that's in our tagline.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. I'll go for that. No, my close comments that said, if you're not a member of the guild and you're interested in woodworking at all, even if you already have your own shop, come down here, take a shop tour, see what we have to offer. If you already have your own shop, that's fine too. Just come to a meeting, watch on YouTube, you stream, join the Facebook group, because even if you already have all the equipment in the world you need, the friendships you develop here and this knowledge base you can access. I know if I have a question about something, I can call either one of you. I can call so many people, send them a message, and be like, "Hey, I had a question." I think I've actually messaged both of you before on something. I'm like, "Hey, I got a question on this idea or concept," and the willingness to share and the friendships you make here definitely outweigh the cost of a membership card financially. It's and like I said, if you don't have a shop and we're getting ready to get into the wintertime, I don't want to be in my garage and 3 feet of snow outside, trying to finish up Christmas projects. We're heated in the winter, we're air conditioned in the summer, we got workbenches that you can work on. But the benefits to me, besides equipment, definitely I believe is the friendship.
Definitely the benefit of a climate-controlled shop is massive, especially as we enter into another Kansas City winter, when it'll either be 70 degrees one day and 3 below the next. So.
Or to 90 and we have air conditioning.
But anyway, that's been our pitch for the guild tonight. Thank Chris for setting in for Grace, and Mike, as always, you did a wonderful job.
Weird being on this side of the camera.
And with that, I say good night to everyone. Be sure to work safe and get your sawdust on.
This has been Woodwords the podcast, a production of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild, with host Kevin Thomas and producer Chris McCauley. A special thank you to our guest today, to the Guild's Leadership Committee, and to all of our sponsors. For more videos, please check out our YouTube channel. If you like this video, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.